fellow members and guests. I remember this like it was yesterday. I had just gotten relieved as Engineer Officer Watch on the USS Houston SSN 713. And for those of you, I don't know if anybody knows what USS Houston is. Anybody know what that is? Well, for people that know naval things, it's a fast attack submarine. Los Angeles class fast attack submarine. So I just gotten off watch, to get back to my story, I just gotten off watch and I was walking forward to give my relief report to the captain. And for anybody who's been on a submarine, the engine room is in the back, and in the front of the submarine is all the torpedo tubes, navigation systems, everything else, the life support systems of the submarine. So I was just about to go through the watertight door. There's a watertight door that is in the middle of the submarine that will seal the engine room from the front of the ship in case of a disaster. Well, just as I got to that hatch, I heard on the 1MC, which is the speaker that goes out through the entire submarine, fire, fire in the engine room. So immediately, you know, and this is programmed in you from all the drills you run through, I sealed that door, which is a little bit unnerving because you don't want to hear fire on a submarine. One of the few things there's two things you don't want to hear on a submarine. One is fire and one is flooding. The other is flooding. And because as you can guess, there's nowhere to go. You either put it out or you sink. So I sealed up the door, which means no one can come into the engine room, and then I proceeded back. And I remember coming around the corner, and I could hear the other engineer officer watch who had just relieved me, and he was frantically trying to shift pumps. Because another thing, for anybody who's followed the nuclear industry and knows what happened in Japan, you can't just shut off cooling to the reactor, or you'll have even, you know, a worse nightmare than a fire, because you'll basically melt the core. So I hear him doing that, and I remember looking at the panel, and it's still surreal to me. I could see fire coming out of the panel, and a huge ball of fire just come out of the panel, and it just hit the other side of the engine room, and a couple guys got extremely hurt, obviously, and it was just all chaos. I would say it was nebulous there at that moment in my life. But we got together, you know, you trained for this, you got breathing apparatus on, and we immediately started to put the fire out. And about 45 minutes later, we kind of got it under control. Now, the other problem we had is because we were in some waters that we weren't supposed to be in, or in a certain area, we couldn't surface. You would come up to the surface, you get some air in it. So we could not surface, so we had to limp out of the water, and, you know, about a day and a half to get to a certain part where we could finally surface. And then finally we went to Adak, Alaska. And I'll tell you, if you ever get a chance to go to Aleutian Island, it's an amazing place. The one cool thing about it, when we were pulling in, we must have saw 50 eagles. It's an amazing place. If you ever get to camp up there, I'd go, but it's a little hard to get to. It's out on the Aleutian chains for anybody who knows that. But what I will say is, so we got into port, we fixed it, we got the injured people off. No one died, but there were some severe injuries. But it was just one of those moments in my life that kind of really made me think. And by now you can probably, you know, give a little bit of my background. I was a submarine officer for 5 years, graduated from the Naval Academy, and got my master's in nuclear and electrical engineering. And after 5 years of being a submarine officer, where I went all over the Pacific, I decided to get out. And I started a company with a couple other guys. We decided to start a software company. That's how I kind of got to Charlotte. We kind of decided what we could do in the Navy with a ship and how we could maintain it. We could do it and sell in the commercial world. Obviously, a ship out at sea is one of the most corrosive environments, and you can maintain it for 30 years. We figured we could sell it to like Duke Energy, stuff like that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. So that's kind of where my present is. And my future, well, that's kind of where Toastmaster comes in. That's kind of what I want to take the next step. Some of you guys have met my wife. She kind of pulled me here. I was a little bit, hesitant about doing this. And Jolie will be back in a couple weeks. She's up in Minnesota getting her PhD. She'd be mad if I said master's now. So my next step is I really like to become a good communicator. Like I watch Lady Tamika or Tim, people that can really speak, because it doesn't come naturally to me. So I'm trying to get out of my shell and then take that next step, so that, you know, whether it's business, I'd like to do, you know, volunteer organizations, a leader in that, or just in everyday life. Madam Toastmaster.